in high school, since we had our last meeting, I need to refresh myself, I'm pretty sure we had gone on our homework excellence trip at that point.
No.
So we had our awards assemblies, followed up by a homework excellence trip, and I would love to spend a few moments talking about the homework excellence trip. It's 5th through 8th graders who haven't missed a homework assignment. The teachers nominate the students. We had 80, I want to say 81 maybe students attend between 5th through 8th grade. We went to Huckleberry and Moon Lake. They did the complete loop, which is 5.5 miles. We, each student took a bag lunch, and we had a nice little lunch at one of the lean-tos there. And I'm pretty confident everyone was exhausted and happy when we were finished. So that they were actually, I had gone a couple days before to make sure, because I was concerned about, well, you know, the insect population as well as the water level. And since it's been so dry, it worked out to be a really perfect time to go. And we really had, unfortunately, the group at the very back end was hit by the most mosquitoes, but it wasn't, you know, you may, and please look on the Facebook page, there's photos of the students on there. And you might notice, especially the group toward the end, that, you know, devised hoods from their sweatshirts because it was, you know, for some of them it was getting pretty bad. But I think most of the kids, everybody had a great time.
It was truly here, it was a conservation program. I love that place.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
That's nice.
I mean, I was obviously thrilled that I wanted to take them there. I was very impressed. I mean, it was an arduous journey, and they did it. So I was saying. Well, we didn't do any fishing, but I did discuss with them, Moon Lake actually, I don't know if for those of you that have been back there, it's because it's so shallow, it gets so warm that it really doesn't support any, you know, large fish.
Where are these places?
So we had our awards assembly programs and we had a homework excellence trip. Right now we are getting geared up for some of the end of year testing, especially the STAR testing for pretty much, yeah, minus a few 11th and 12th graders, the 7th through 10th grade population will all be participating in the STAR, whether it's math and reading or just the reading assessment. In addition to that, of course, the high school, one of the new components for the APPR is the assessment piece. So staff are also preparing, well, or I'm preparing for them, their assessments, and we're establishing a schedule on when that will occur within each classroom, and then also trying to orchestrate the grading, how those are going to be graded. So those are some of the things that we've been working on. Oh, we had the prom this Saturday, by the way. It was, I thought it was fantastic, very well decorated, the students were wonderful. And again, photos will be on the Facebook page. And I don't know, has anyone kind of given this group a preview of the new webpage? If you're at all interested right now, if you want to open up a new tab on the top.
You might want to show them how to do this.
I lost mine already.
No, it's actual our new school webpage. So if you open up a new tab, I'm hoping that one of the sites that will come up is
The same webpage has been filled.
Yep. Hertzberg. Yes, okay, Chris is there. Chris, if you would go to employee, around the right side. Go to the school homepage. If you've gotten there, please go to the school homepage. Once you get to the school homepage, you're going to click on the right-hand side. It says employee. And then you'll notice several links come up. There's one that's in black. It says Marzano links. Right above that, it should say future website.
Yeah.
You got it, guys? Get it?
Did everybody over there get it, or anybody need help?
We're almost in just
Pictures actually change.
right.
Yeah, the
So
pictures
you might
change.
notice that there's the pictures are scrolling through. On the left-hand side is the elementary, and the middle is events, and on the right-hand side would be high school. So John Hogel and Rod Hooper, of course, Rod is our BOCES ITCC, right, guru. They have been working diligently to prepare this any spare moment they have, they've been working on laying this out. In addition to that, they've been doing some professional development with especially Kay, for instance, Sherry, Dawn. So they're starting to get the pages laid out. So we're hoping to transition to the new webpage next month.
It hopefully has been made a little bit more user-friendly to the technologically impaired, and I put myself in that category. So we're trying to really make things simpler and easier for people to go on and not have things in 6 places.
Right.
But, you know.
That's pretty comfortable. Sure, just function how
Mhm.
little time anyway.
Especially one of the discussions has been, a pet peeve of mine is athletics. When there's a change in
Right.
schedule, we're trying to determine what's going to be the best way to make sure that parents are notified using the website without having to necessarily click 5 times to get where you need to go, and make sure that that information is as accurate as we can possibly make it. So that's,
The other neat thing with Amy was saying that the announcements, the daily announcements will now be on the webpage, so parents can actually see when money's due, when, you know, so that, and all sports practices change or whatever will come under where it says announcements there, so.
I didn't know what we were gonna do because we've always called Lori.
Yeah.
Night and she would
Yeah.
tell us
right.
stuff.
Well, we're hoping that the athletic calendar will be, certainly as current as we can make it, and then if there's a minute, change that day, it will appear as an announcement on the front page, so parents will know.
Did the prom kind of look like what it has in years past? It's gone back to more traditional, I guess, proms. It looked like that way to me anyways.
I mean, there's been a variety, of course, a couple years ago, that group won the contest, so they were
Oh,
able to
right.
use the entire gym. I certainly, without the $5,000 of extra funds to use, half of the gym seems a bit more appropriate. But I would say, it was very well done. They worked very hard. I thought it was gorgeous inside.
It always looks nice, but it was just, it looked a little bit different than like last year.
What was the theme?
Side adventure.
Oh, yes, or Paradise. Poseidon's Paradise.
Side adventure was a horrible disaster.
I kept waiting for Shelley Leaders to come.
Yes, right.
With the advisors.
Karen Daniel.
And we have to really, her husband was here, but 5 days that week, took off work, but they just put in so much with the kids, and it was just unbelievable how much the kids showed up. Every time they had something, they were there.
Could you put a letter in a file or something?
Actually, it's in process. I just haven't gotten through it.
Can I ask a quick question on this webpage? Would this be available to, like, if we had a fuel spill, I was thinking about it next door when we were talking to other meeting. Would that be available to, like, so the parents could pull this up at home and actually get the correct information on what's going on and not rumors and hearsay and stuff like this?
That's the goal, is to make sure that the people that are responsible for those pages, especially that you're doing when they come up immediately, will have, that they would be the first people to be contacted. Put that information in so that it gets out to the public.
Can have it automatic, so people will be, update this immediately.
Right, and
Which is
obviously you
nice.
have to be able to remain in the building or have access to this too.
Right.
But there could be a shortcut that I'm not familiar with, that maybe
You
John
can have it on your
has.
smartphone.
I was going to say that you might be able to update and edit right from your phone. I don't know that.
I'm just
Okay.
thinking that if
Okay,
you had,
that's-
instead of people calling, wanting to know what's going on, the most correct information.
Right, we might have like emergency alert section, something like that, is that right?
That would take priority and everybody would see it.
Right, then that's the goal. Every teacher now will have a standardized webpage. That's what we're hoping, this is the layout and a template, where before there was a variety of, front page, Dreamweaver, et cetera, different platforms that people were using. So this should house everything.
Yeah, we might bring that back to the safety committee since we just need to, and have a little section.
That'd be ideal to have this as a go-to place for people that are more and more living on the internet, so that they can.
The teacher webpage stuff I'm really excited to see. There's a nice assignments tab. The layout is just so conducive to having kids as a go-to. They've forgotten a homework assignment, they know exactly where to go, and it's the same for, the layout, hopefully, will be similar for all staff members.
But we've all seen the demo when somebody tells a story and by the time it gets
Yeah.
over here, how how far inaccurate it is. So instead of listening to hearsay and I heard this, it would be the correct information right there. You know, so.
Be nice, like you said, exams and stuff to be put on there, so parents are aware when the exams are.
Actually, if you go to the high school page,
You say they are
on high school, and go to high school calendar today, Sherry Shattuck was working on this. And if you'll notice, I believe if you go to June, would have to change the calendar, but it's got Regents exam information listed in there. She's already been working on some of that.
Just was up on the top
Golf practice.
Right, she's been, so this obviously hasn't been rolled out to the public, but as we're building within, getting people educated as to how to input information.
Most of the 24, 27, highlighted.
Stars.
So obviously, as we discussed, that Regents Week is going to be the countdown. Is that what you're talking about?
Sherry had to do that. She's got the time left to celebrate.
Yeah, right, it was.
Those are important things.
We, we're certainly moving towards Regents time, and in addition to getting all the regional district assessment pieces taken care of, looming in the very near future, of course, it's really the Regents exams that are ultimately, for me at least, certainly a large portion of why we're here, so. So that's what's going on in the high school.
Thank you.
Nice job on the webpage.
Yeah, that's very exciting. I'll pass that along to John and Rod.
They will be thrilled, because they've just been banging their heads against the wall the last couple of months. And they really, it's all Rod's been doing on his one day.
Oh, you're doing a nice job on it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, elementary news. I guess we'll begin. We have science test coming up soon for fourth grade, and that would also apply to eighth grade. The performance test is on the 22nd of May, and then there's a written test, and that's on the 5th of June. So students are preparing diligently, as our teachers, for that. For science has gotten short shrift in the last few years, and I know that the teachers really are scrambling to make sure that the kids know how to use all of the equipment. It really has had to be put aside a little bit for a lot of the new ELA and math, but the fourth grade teachers have still done a great job of representing science in the elementary. It's a constant battle, and one I hope to win, where we can bring science back all the way up through sixth and then beyond, which I hope pleases
Certainly does.
science department. It really has been kind of tossed out the door for a while. So that's science. We have 3 teams over the summer who will be going to the St. Lawrence University hosted Constructivist Conference. And what that is, it's the week of July 15th, is a facilitated work session, week long. 4 teams of 4 or more that are given very particular tasks to achieve. Our 3 teams are doing the pre-K through 2 phonics scope and sequence, which I'm going to get back to in a second. We're doing a writing program, an articulated writing program right now, 3 through 6, because writing is sort of put by the wayside for a little bit. And continuing to work on our EK math framework, what math instruction has to look like at each grade level, and what kinds of concepts, what kinds of models, and what kinds of fluency, and what kinds of problem solving have to go on in each grade level in order for students to be able to leave, say, 2nd grade, go into 3rd grade, already know how to manipulate models, talk math talk, things like that. The great bonus of sending our folks to the Constructivist concert is twofold. One, it's not happening in the building. You cannot be lured away by something that really probably is quite urgent going on in your classroom, any number of things. And 2, it's eatable through BOCES. So just to illustrate its marvelousness, we will be able to send 3 teams, at least 12 of our elementary people, for the cost of keeping 4 of them in the building all week. how high our A rate is. I think the other thing that's really important about it is we are beginning to build teams across grade levels. Like any teacher, it doesn't matter if you're in elementary, middle, high, everyone gets siloed into their classroom, they're siloed into their grade level. So this is a first attempt to try and unsilo our folks and have them start thinking about what happens before and after the instruction that they deliver. So I'm gonna flip back to the phonics scope and sequence, which just seems so boring, I know, phonics. But I'm very, very proud of our pre-K through 2 group. Those are the real deep years of not only letter identification, but blends and initial sounds and sneaky E's and bossy R's and things like that, all the things that come with being able to read. The state has put out what they're calling the skills strand. That would be the state's version of the phonics scope and sequence. We decided early on not to follow that model because it's quirky and weird. It doesn't follow what normal parents and normal teachers have thought about when they thought about phonics instruction. It has students doing things that are very odd and different. I'm not saying it might not be effective, but they're odd and they're different and they would be seen as really just disorienting. People start to get a little nervous about that and say, well, if we're gonna work together as a team, my God, we have so much to do, shouldn't we just follow what's out there? And I said, no, I'm really proud of what you're doing. It's based on a very sound research base. And then just the other day, we got the reward I think our folks deserve, and that is that the state level skills strand, because it's so controversial, is now being piloted. Which is to say that the state doesn't even necessarily believe that their skills strand is the best. So I'm extra proud because our folks still were diligent, they're moving forward. There are gonna be, again, we're working across grade levels in ways we haven't before, but I think the teachers are gonna be really proud of what they've done. And then they can, on their own, look at the merits of what the state model is later on. And they're gonna go into it being experts in phonics instruction and not just consumers of the book or the program. So I really look forward to it, and I know it's gonna be some difficult work, but I'm extra proud of that team. And I know I'll be extra proud of the other teams, we just haven't done anything with them yet. So that's that. I do wanna let you know, we've talked about it all year long, but we are officially, as an elementary crew, we are adopting the ELA domains and modules. They are the prefabricated lessons and units for lots of different reasons, one of which is that, like we've talked about before, in those younger grade level years, they're gonna learn a lot about content, science, social studies, as well as literature, and it complements going up into 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. So we're not really in a position to say, oh, we have loads of time and can create something just as rigorous in all these wide varieties of disciplines. So it's a safe bet, and they're beautiful lesson plans, most of them. Some are a little weird, but you kind of have to take that. Where we will struggle a little bit, because there are new time constraints with those modules and domains, we continue, and I will put my fist down and wrap it a few times. We have to continue with our framework for reading. We have to continue with our framework for reading. And you are going to hear people say, we don't have time to continue with our framework for reading. We have to. We have a student population that reads well below grade level. So even though the marvelousness of the state modules and their beauty and their awesome reading lists that include books above and below grade level, we don't own a lot of those books yet. And we have to keep closing that gap for our students. So that is what we will do. And there will be some who will not be happy with that, and I'll just let you know that right now. But our children need to know how to read, and they will be better consumers of those modules if they're closer to being able to read that grade level of instruction. So there's my test coming down, okay? You saw it the first time.
One of the things we noticed when we did the STAR testing at the beginning of the year, especially at the high school, at the high school end, was some of the shock by the staff members about where some of our students are at the reading levels. I mean, 10th grade students well into the elementaries, they hadn't reached 5th grade reading level.
And it has to be pre-K-12, through the building, not just the elementary.
Right, absolutely.
One of the things, speaking of reading, just sorry to interrupt you, but within the high school next year, all of the books that are currently our curriculum are no longer the recommended books. So I hope we have a lot of readers on board, because we're gonna have to approve every one of those books. So I don't know, you know.
There's some very questionable
Yes.
items. What they've done is put out a book list. They don't have the ELA modules for the 7-12 yet. They have a module for 7th grade. They have a unit for 8th grade, but they did produce a book list.
And we do have availability for those books, but with changing so many, and the board has to approve each one of those books, I'm recommending we're probably gonna end up breaking up into committees to read books. There's truly, I think, 10 to 12 for just the 9-12, that's not even 7 and 8.
What are we looking at with those books? Why is,
Appropriateness. Some of the books deal with topics that are, you know, racist, sexual exploit sexuality in some ways, might go towards, you know, rape scenes, child suicide. And some of the books, one of the teachers said, I'm not teaching these books. I mean, you know, so it's things the board's gonna have to decide, how much do we wanna open some of those topics up? How do we deal with teaching the kids, you know, certain ways to deal with, you know, slang and racial slurs and, you know, it's, because obviously some of those things don't exist in our community. But the books are, current books, what's the Geisha? Memoirs of Geisha, I don't know if any of you have read that.
Who approves it?
Stated.
Why was it
was
the
in that
state is
position.
approved, it's telling us we need to know this, what we have to approve.
But that's always been, that's not new. I mean, we've
Well, why
always
would
had
they-
to approve any novel. I mean, it's just like, you know, we have the same problem with Harry Potter. I mean, there were parents that came out, you know, a couple years ago, their children weren't allowed to read Harry Potter because of the religious reasons. But we're looking at changing almost every book in our curriculum.
Why
Right?
did the state put us in that position?
Because they, I mean, I guess in all honesty, they feel that children should be exposed to all forms of literary genre. I mean, help me here, because you're an English teacher. I mean, that it's really important to expose students to things they may not necessarily live, see. And they also are assuming that all children have parents who talk about those things, who are there to educate.
Now, do these fall, now we were going to a nonfiction, so that is,
Some of the texts that, or some of the books that were listed are certainly books that they're already using, but there were certainly some that are not. And I can't say that when I looked over the list, it was necessarily all informational text,
Well, that
you
meant,
know, or nonfiction, but
I think by 7-12, part of that shift is supposed to come in the other
Okay.
content areas.
not
Yeah.
necessarily the high school.
one of the reasons I'm sure state ed didn't want to get involved in is that it's borderlines on censorship, really, you know, for, you know, what is, you could read the same stuff in the newspaper.
True. But you're not assigned to read the
I know.
newspaper.
And tear it
You know,
apart
It's
and
a delicate
analyze
line
it
to
and-
walk.
It
you know,
is.
You know, it's like the old movie Fahrenheit 451 where they burned the books because they didn't want people to read them. You know, one of the colleges banned Hitler's book, and Mein Kampf was the reason for the whole World War II. I mean, so you got history and you got censorship, so it's gonna be a touchy subject.
Well, it is, but you also, I mean, we all know by different communities, different areas, there's different religious beliefs, different, you know, pro-life, I mean, depending where you live and those types of things. So it really comes down to each district. If you know that's gonna be offensive to your community, you may choose not to introduce that book.
Well, and there'll be communities with rashes of teenage suicide. Well, obviously, you're not gonna whip out a book, you know, that's, you know, one way or the other. I mean, you kind of have to look at your own area.
Well, it's, I mean, we've had, you know, over the years concerns of even some of the books in our library. A child called in, some parents were very angry it was even in our library. So it's,
Never happened to a cat in the hat.
Well, you know,
as a matter of fact,
there's a race in there.
I will say, as a former teacher, particularly of 11th, 12th graders, Amy and I have had this conversation. I was given tremendous freedom with the texts that I selected, which was pretty cool. But occasionally brought you to some uncomfortable places with the books that you selected. Like, for instance, I taught, it was called ethnic literature. And really the whole story underneath most ethnic literature is a coming of age tale. You find your identity in a new place, and along with it comes the awakening, whatever it may be for you. So it became really clear to me that I was gonna have a tough go of it. So there were some books. There was How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accent, which is really, and I know this is where the state is coming from, which is on a literary level, an excellent book. It's excellent in every way that students have access to really complex language. It had some really racy stuff in it, and I had to have sign-off sheets, and I had to have an alternative text for them. Fortunately, most parents, all parents actually, never kind of resisted, and we went forward. And I will say, for that text, which was engaging and did have some controversial stuff in it, every student read it. You know, so I do know that these are texts that kids really do want to read. You know, it would help for us to all know what they are a little bit better. And in the hands of an individual who wants to take on some of those issues, but is really there to dig deep into the text, it's all there for them. So I think that's sort of, you know, what comes with that territory. Because other very seemingly innocent, you know, we watched Angela's Ashes, which is a sad tale of poverty in Ireland and stuff. But it's got all sorts of crazy sexual awakening stuff in it too. And that's a little easier. I could just fast forward through it and paraphrase quickly what happened. But again, it's amazing how much 11th and 12th graders, they want to talk about those kinds of things. They want, and they don't only just want to talk about that. It's not like, let's just talk about the masturbation scene. You know, most don't really want to talk about that scene at all. They just want to be like, it happened. I know it happened. Let's move on. Because there was so much more to talk about. So, I mean, that would be the silver lining of it, is these really typically are texts that older kids will read.
Might be a better idea to have a committee. I'm just seeing one person steering what the community will read, and I disagree with censorship. You know, it's a free country, and you know, maybe it's not appropriate, and maybe an English teacher in that case, and especially a teacher who's got to present this, would be a better person on the committee. But I still would like to see a committee, because I don't think one person should dictate what everybody reads.
But ultimately, the board is the one who has to approve all of, you know, yes or no. And I know that other districts have done that, where you have parents, where you have, you know, teachers, board members, each, you know, go in and, you know, 5 you do this book, 5 you do that, present it to the group, talk about, you know, what are the
I'm
negatives,
against
the
this because of
positives,
this.
yep, the negatives, the positives, the, you know, what are the morals, what are the values, what is the religious belief, what is the, you know.
What's the benefit of the book versus the risk factors?
Do you get the book form, or do you read it on the computer?
I haven't gotten that far yet. Usually if you get, I mean, I just know with all these changes at once, it's not hard at some points just to get, you know, 5, 6 of the books, but we're looking at quite a few books to start, so I think we have to provide.
From a practical perspective, what cost are we looking at, and how do we do this?
I think BOCES has been making kits. I think for some of the texts, especially I noticed at the elementary level, I think they're making kits, so if you're using this book, then you,
So you can just borrow them.
right.
That would be-
But I don't know, you know, how.
Because the lists and everything are so slow in coming, to be perfectly honest, no, there hasn't been extra budgeted for those things. In addition to, I know the elementary has actually already started purchasing many of their stuff last year, but their lists came out well in advance. You know, the high school stuff's, as we said, there's not even modules up yet. So, but the list is up there, yeah, one, I'm sorry, I should cut them down. The list is up there of at least the books now. And even if we start looking at local libraries, that type of thing, I mean, there are books that we're gonna find.
You mentioned that we have students in 10th grade and elementary grade reading.
It's more prevalent than you think.
How can that happen? If a student is in 7th grade, why does he or she advance to 8th grade if or she can't read.
One thing, at the high school level, there is we do have a reading class. Yeah, I mean,
We do now.
We haven't always had a reading class, and we have a seventh, eighth, and ninth grade reading class, but not all students are in the reading class. So we're certainly making progress in that direction, and I think as the movement with some of the new shifts that are in place, we will move where students are more literate, but it's going to take some time, especially as Amy's mentioning. You know, our population also has a lot of growth that they need to experience to reach those levels. But, you know, again, you can get a science class and have a low reading level, means when you're reading detection, you struggle, which certainly impacts their grade, but it probably doesn't impact it to the point where they're going to, you know, fail a course.
I could understand, just an example, maybe a 10th grader had an 8th grade reading level.
Right.
But it's hard for me to understand that a 10th grader could have a 5th grade reading level.
That can happen. And sometimes some of those students would be, you know, special education students we're well aware of where they're at, and we're trying to make improvements. But again, it's so difficult, like when I think about that with my own students, how to get them there, when my responsibility, now it's not just science, but it's to reading, the counseling that we do, you know, it's all of those pieces. So trying to make all of that fit in a 40-minute period, you know, again, I think the whole idea is to make it a theme for the school, that this is a focus that we as a district want to make, that's, you know, one of our priorities is to make that improvement for students, because that's one of the, you know, whether or not they pass that chemistry class, it will not impact them to any level or degree as will their reading skills.
I'm glad to hear that you guys are addressing this issue. This is certainly pretty scary for me to hear that.
No, and it was shocking to the staff, because of course, at the high school level, we generally don't do a reading page, you know, where a student's at. So it was eye-opening for us.
Whereas, to myself, I was shocked that the staff were shocked that they had 4th and 5th graders in their class. Like, I just couldn't believe they weren't aware of that. So that to me is scarier. I think they've been teaching kids for years, having no idea that some of them, you know, were at a 4th and 5th grade reading level.
And if you think about it, and like even myself, and I'm sure, you know, you ask a student, you might do a read aloud or something in the classroom, but how often do you do that?
Right.
And a student might purposely choose a passage maybe that was easier, or they might use the pass option. So, you know, again, it's hard to discern between when a student turns in a piece of paper, is that really their reading level? You know, it's so difficult to gauge. So we need to build our skill set there as well in the high school, I think.
The state should consider going back to basics. This other stuff.
Do we feel that our ways of identifying students is adequate at this
I think
point?
it's more than adequate. The problem is that, and it's not just here, you know,
Right.
when you got to 6th grade, you stopped doing reading, you stopped doing reading tests, you
Right.
stopped doing grade level equivalents.
Right.
You know, and even when you were doing the state testing at some point, it wasn't giving you grade level equivalents, it was giving you 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Yeah.
It wasn't saying the kid has a 1, but they're at 4 grades below level, it just was a 1. And those are things I feel like as state keeps saying, we're raising the bar, they're starting to show people why we need to raise the bar by, you know, showing grade level equivalents, by teachers having to do data driven, by testing kids, I hate to say it 10 times a year, but it's making people more aware that everybody's not on grade level. And that's, as much as I hate to agree with the state, some of that needs to happen.
It does, because these kids, once they leave school, that's the skills they got for the rest of their life.
And that's why the colleges, and you know this from where you are protesting. You know, 90% of their kids have to go to remediation classes
Right.
before they can even take college courses now.
Yeah.
And that's, you
It's
know,
no
a
longer
huge
4
problem.
years in a bachelor's, because the first year is catch-up.
Right. And that's why I remember Jerry Swelnick giving a presentation in a class that I was taking, and I don't remember the grade level, but especially Amy's focus on reading at the elementary, because that's when the most growth occurs, is at that bracket. And it was something amazing, you know, it was this exponential curve that just from K to 3, you know, the growth that those students experienced was amazing. And then it starts to level off, you know, as they continue to get older. So to get them when they're young, to build those skills so that we can keep working on that as they get older.
But if they miss those skills at the bottom, they're
Right.
always gonna be behind,
Absolutely.
because they're never gonna have the skills, they're always gonna be playing catch-up.
That's why we have to prioritize that. That needs to be a focus for us, that we see that as a priority, that we want to make sure we do.
They can't understand 10th grade social studies if they're reading at the 6th grade level.
It comes back to the same thing, there's no mandatory retention from, kindergarten to 5th grade, up 4th grade here. So that students that we may recommend that they be retained, their parents have the right to push them forward. They have to sign a note saying it was recommended retention, but it's not till 5th and 6th grade we can mandate retention.
So what year do you expect us to have a 6th grade student coming out of there with 6th grade reading level
You mean across the board?
across the board?
I don't ever see that happen.
What percentage do you think?
Okay.
75%?
What do you think? I mean,
I don't know
I
what
think
the
that's high.
guiding number
I
would
need to
be.
say that.
Well, it
I
certainly
mean, it's,
fluctuate.
we should probably have, I mean, I can go certainly look at that. We should have an aspirational number, like 80%, knowing that we'll never get to it perhaps, based on whatever research shows us is we're tipping out. Because we do have a population within each grade level that has learning disabilities and reading, so that.
But within our elementary, and I don't know what the statistics maybe you can help me, I know when I was elementary principal, we always had more than 70% of our students getting AIS, which meant they were below grade level. And that was more, K, especially K through 4, 5 and 6, it would dwindle a little, but it was still usually half the class.
Do they actually have to get up in front of a class and read anything on any of the grades levels?
It's starting to come back more now, I would say, than it used to. I think it stopped for a while, and everybody said, oh, don't embarrass kids, but I think we're really starting back more into that again.
That'd be one way to show if they can do it in front of a class.
Well, it's part of the standards, to do the oral reading, the speaking, the,
And if they slide it, if they aren't confronted with those issues when they're in the 4th grade, 5th grade, and then when they become juniors or seniors, they have to stand up there for the first time, it's gonna be tremendous. It's gonna be a much
Devastating.
higher, devastating experience for them to get used to doing it. I'm speaking from personal experience.
Right.
I mean, I did public speaking when I was a junior or a senior, and it was terrifying. And yet, those are things I've done for the last 25 years is presentation. So it's a learned skill.
right.
And, but if they slide and they aren't exposed to reading it in public at 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, it's gonna be a much harder situation for them.
Here's what a 4th grader's day would look like in terms of that. 45 minutes of guided reading instruction. That means they're level P, they hang out in a group with like 4 other kids at level P, and they read. They get guided reading, that's the level at which they actually still need help. They answer questions from the text, they go back into that text that they have access to, they write about stuff from the text using that. So then they trot out, and some of them who are the most needy are gonna be seen every single day. Others will be seen every other day, they're in little groups, and they do different activities. And then they roll over into 60 minutes of English language arts, and that's those modules, and that is grade level. So there's 60 minutes daily where they're interacting.
Mandatory for every student, they have to have grade level instruction.
They're interacting with grade level text, so they know the score, Unfortunately, some of them in knowing that score still can't read the score.
Right.
But it is what it is, and that it's not all like sitting around for 60 minutes reading grade level text. But you're interacting with it, they're gonna have remediation to keep trying to prop them up to that. There are some other texts that are suggested, like when they do a research project on frogs, for instance, where we need to find some of those books and make sure we have them in the library. So little Johnny at a P, who's not at an S, can go find a level P frog book and do his research and still know how to do the research skill. But the urgency has got to be put deeply into our parents and our staff that we are racing against a clock. I know kids are kids, and part of elementary school is to let kids be kids, for sure, but building that culture in which we as a district, you guys as a board, think that reading on grade level is absolutely essential and the most humane thing we could do for our children. we've got to ooze that. You know, because no awesome module with awesome frog books in it is gonna be the only thing that does that for us. And I mean, as one who sits in first grade classrooms and listens to them read at grade level, it can, you know, it's not always the best use of time, you know what I mean? So part of it is using your time wisely and then getting those kids in books. Because otherwise, research shows that kids should be reading for upwards of 1 hour a day independently. We have that built into that daily 5 structure, but 1 hour a day. So by 3rd and 4th grade, they should be consuming books, like really consuming books about 1 chapter book a week, 1 chapter book every other week. You just should have bookworms galore. I mean, part of the challenge, again, is we're modeling, helping them find their right fit book. Like, if you like dirt bikes, awesome, here's what we have. Like, go out on a limb, experiment, find something you love. You have to learn how to be able to basically sit down for a half an hour and love what you're reading. And I have seen that this year with a lot of kids. You just see them kicking back. I'll be an observing teachers and I just watch them smile, reading the book, you know, and it's a great book, and some of them are big fat books, and I wish you could be there to see that, because you think, oh my God, this is exactly what it's supposed to be doing. So that is happening.
Does the pre-K student, do they read books to them?
Oh, yeah.
To show them that, you know, there's joy in reading?
Oh, yeah, yeah, and you know, all that joy is not being squashed out of kids. The domains bring it right back, because they're pretty awesome reading alouds, 30 minutes a day, really great books, you know. Teachers can still sneak in some other fun books for holidays and things like that. So the joy has not been splashed out. It just feels less joyful right now, because we're like, hey, kids reading, you know. That's me running around the halls like Chicken Little, screaming, everyone's below grade level, we didn't get a grade level. So I may be bringing that stress onto our teachers, but it's very secret. I don't tell the children, you know. They're very inspired when they see themselves move up. They do track their progress. So much so that some of the kindergartners are like way above grade level, and we've had to say, like, whoa, we need to slow down, and you're supposed to read at least 20 books within that level, you know, and they're so like out there trying to get better and better. So, you know, it's sort of like, it is becoming a problem that they're you know, now they really want to be 1 grade level higher, one reading level higher, and we have to slow them down, but that's a pretty good symptom of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, just remember, if the sky is falling, you want Chicken Little.
Right.
Did they have a program, though, that if the kid read so many books, he got some type of reward?
We still have that, Deer Club.
And with the Daily 5 really emphasizing that independent reading, folks who kind of went away from it are drifting back toward it with whole classrooms of, like, there was a story the other day of one little girl who, you know, she's just one of those little girls who just loves points, you know. So she's like, I think I'm just gonna stay in for an extra 10 minutes and do, there are these computer-based tests because you can earn points. But again, like, not the worst symptom in the world. Like, okay, little, you know, Betty, do that quickly, but then come outside, you know. So
Do you ever use those kids like that to bring along other kids?
they, in that particular class where that girl who loves points came out of, the teacher said that even the lowest performing kids, they don't tend to compare with one another and say, you've got 200 points, I have 49. They just all like those points and they know how to earn them. So every student in that class has got points by reading those books. You know, and they have a wide variety of books to read. You know, so and there's no, the only promise is the end of the year Deer Club store.
I was just gonna say, we're gonna have to buy a lot more stuff for the Deer Club store.
They don't know what it looks like, they don't really know what's there, you know, it's just like this store in their mind. But they're driven by those points, because it's an instant feedback loop for them to see that there's progression, and they eat it up, so.
What's this Deer Club?
Just drop everything and read,
And enjoy reading.
and enjoy
Yeah.
reading. And there's
There's
Fawn
the Fawn
Club,
Club.
which is the younger group of students. And it's through the Accelerated Reader Program, which we just got new this year. They toothed it out for, but it was worth it. It's online. It just was really expensive to reinvest in it. It's online, and students can, you know, read books, take tests, and at all different levels. And the kids know how to do it. You see the kindergarten students on the computer taking, you know, it's amazing. It
On
really
club,
is.
usually there's 5 questions.
Mhm.
For the older ones, there's 10. And you have to read the book. You can't do those questions unless you've read it.
So what I'm hearing here is that we've identified a problem where students are reading below grade level. We've struggled in the past to nail down any cohesive goals for the board. I would recommend, it sounds like you guys have a plan in place, or at least working towards that. And I don't want to be the one to micromanage that. I would say, let's set a goal, and not tonight necessarily, but let's be thinking about a measurable, achievable goal that looks at students reading below grade level. Where do we want them to be realistically? Set that as a goal.
Which, to back that up, one of the reasons we pushed many of the high school teachers to use STAR reading was because teachers didn't realize the levels of some of the kids that were so low, and so that all academic teachers would teach reading. I mean, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade teachers, just because you're social studies or science doesn't mean you shouldn't be working with reading and improving comprehension.
Part of the, but that behind the Common Core was trying to.
What do you mean by star reading?
It's a performance test for students, and you give it at certain times of the year.
Didn't they have reading, when I was teaching, they had reading in the morning, now they walk in high
Oh.
school?
We used to have silent reading, and then we also had walking. We don't have silent reading any longer, we just walk. So they come in, students, at 7:45, we'd be in the building until 8 o'clock is homeroom, and then at 8 to 8:20, we walk. So the silent reading just went away, but you're right, there's no reason
Well,
why.
it hasn't gone away, I'm just saying, in the elementary, end,
Right,
because that
now.
time's being provided, but it has in
The
some,
high school.
high school it has. I
Is that a
agree.
good idea? I mean, I assume you took it away for a reason, or it went away for a reason, not saying you did.
The reason was is because there was major complaints, people weren't reading, people weren't doing things, the older students didn't want to do it. Some teachers were enforcing it, some wasn't, and then along came the fitness concern. Everybody was obese, everybody body mass index, you know. We had a grant that through fitness, and one of the things that we said our school, you know, we tried to fight child obesity because we were at very high numbers of child obesity, and we bought
Well,
into.
statistics, that exercise in the morning, helped you learn better.
It also, right, it's, brings more
Yeah.
oxygen to the brain,
Yeah.
so by exercising, it makes students more awake, more alert, and ready to learn. And that's why we went to the walking. At first, no one liked it, they hated it, and I think more people have embraced it, some people very much so, but it's kind of like where the trend is, I guess, every year. I mean, it's not to say we don't go back to the reading, but
Is it possible that for some of these kids that you identified as needing reading or below reading skills, and even some of your high school students are reading at a 5th and 6th grade level, is there a way that they could use that time in reading, but obviously supervise it? Or is that just gonna throw a monkey wrench in everything?
I don't, I mean, one of the things that happens with response to intervention, AIS, which everybody used to know it as, many of your students who don't do well on regions, often it's because they don't read well. I mean, that's not the only reason, but that they struggle immensely.
It's a reason,
Right.
obviously.
But that, which is why they end up going back to get support. What often it is just helping them back through the text, the materials, you know, and some of it goes back to reading.
You have to learn how to read.
But I
The rest
think,
of your life, you're gonna be behind the 8 ball.
well, I think if the board establishes what you feel like is an appropriate vision, and then at the elementary and high school level, we, as a staff, also make that vision occur and make it our vision, we can develop and create ways that we want to address this. And, you know, so that it's, you know, we have buy-in from the staff as well as all members of this, all stakeholders.
I think we need to go back to that to address it as a goal.
You guys have to tell us what's realistic. You
Right.
say 100%, that's unrealistic.
Mhm.
That's not, I don't think that's our job to figure out. We present us something that you feel is realistic, and is it a district goal, is it a superintendent goal, is it a principal's goal, is it everybody's goal?
We need to
Whatever you
make
guys think
everybody's.
is the
Right.
most fair, and it's something that's achievable.
And something we can
I think
keep
that's
track of.
something that- Yeah, something that's measurable.
Yeah.
And I
Are
don't,
we hitting that goal or aren't we? And if we're not, what do we gotta do to get there?
yeah, and if having kids reading during the time when they're walking, it's gonna cause more of a problem for you, then obviously that's not what the idea was, but I'm just saying.
Again, I feel like to have everyone feel empowered with what's happening is come up with solutions. How do we see as a staff how to address that,
So
you know?
the district, will the board feel that this is something that we
Right.
want to achieve as a district? What's realistic, how we can get there? Be 100% behind that.
Absolutely. Sounds
Because every kid that walks out that door when he graduates has got 50 years or more of struggling, breaking the limit if he's not a good reader, not good math. The jobs that he's could have ended up with is gonna be not the best jobs. He's not gonna be eligible for college or trade school without those skills, so.
Get writing in there too.
Writing too, but, yep, but you gotta read before you can write, even, you know, those skills. If you're looking at a manual, you gotta be able to read.
Obviously, all skills need to be, to get over other skills, lose other skills is expensive. It's gonna be a battle with that.
Including science.
Tell us what, yeah, well, I would have to.
Well, that's why, and I think the state in some ways went too far with pushing reading for
I
us,
agree.
and then
I
we
agree.
forgot about math,
Lower
we forgot about,
grades.
yeah. And suddenly it's, okay, now let's bring everything back up and in, but.
Think it over and come back to us. Sounds great.
Just, that's okay, that was a good
Yeah, what
intro.
we're talking about.
Right.
You know, it's really nice to talk about education, folks. I'd like to put that down in the minutes.
We possibly are talking about our root cause of why our report card is low scoring.
Oh, that's a good portion.
Okay.
I mean, not, can I just,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
Not only can, I mean, are we well in reading, it's also comprehension. So, I mean, it goes hand in hand. If
Right.
you don't read well, you may not comprehend well.
Reading
That's-
is the root of everything.
Right. But at one point, we were just pushing fluency of reading for so hard here, we forgot all about comprehension. So we had to kind of take a step back again and put the two together.
Good discussion.
Well, if
Okay,
you
I'm gonna-
Take a state test, you soon find out that they try to throw little curves in their questions, so you gotta be able to read it and understand it.
More so now than ever. All right, two more things. Evaluations will be finished by me by the end of next week. I just can't be happier. Okay. That was smart, man. Okay, and the last thing I just wanted to acknowledge was, after the ELA assessment, traditionally after assessments, we had, snacked up the kids, given them a bottle of water and a granola bar, but with our tightened budget, although they're private. With the budget being tight, I could not see us for 3 through 6 using any cash from the school. So I did reach out to Walmart, Pinocco, and Price Chopper, who very generously donated enough for ELA for 3 days.
Cool.
I could not get any more for math, but that was okay, because I said, well, we've got snacks enough here, we can figure out the other snacks. And then I got some extra snacks late, but I checked all the expiration dates, and they're good for a year, so I'm just gonna put them in the refrigerator and become a cereal snack collector. The kids loved it. I mean, it was a little different. We put things in a Ziploc bag, et cetera, and it's a wide variety of colorful things, almost nutritionally sound.
Yeah.
But it helped, and I was quite impressed with the generosity of the places that donated, so.
So check the expiration sticker on it before you eat it. 1964 is out.
Right, they might have been giving me like the front of the shelf items. So that is the elementary school.
Okay, a couple of things. Obviously, we mentioned the school report card. No different than kind of what we talked about earlier this year when we knew our state tests that we weren't going to be growing or happy and our performance levels are low. Pretty much across the board, elementary and high school at certain areas. As far as our ELA and math test, again, we were very low in the county. As we got higher with more, this has been historically true here in this district, as we begin to take regions and those things, our students are better performers. So in time, we catch up and even at times surpass other people in New York. And once again, and I hate to even say this, because whenever you say this, it comes back to bite you, but we were a bronze winner, which we were about 3 or 4 years ago, for testing scores within the middle school.
I'm gonna ask you what you had to do on that, so.
It's just a survey that's done, and, you know, when you look at what our state scores were, you say, wow, how does that happen? But within this criteria, we made it, met it, and became a bronze. I think there were, within the county, about 3 or 4, what was it, Kate?
4.
3 or 4, okay,
Newellton,
And then several bronze.
and several bronze.
Potsdam.
Yeah, so we were happy to once again at least make the ranking, but like I said, when you say that, then it's always bad when you look for that positive press of it. So, my next thing, and the copy of the letter is there for everyone to see. I did hear back from the State Department of Transportation. They are looking into our request. They actually have had a few people here surveying the roads, watching people, radar guns, everything, to see people in the mornings, more when it's dead in the afternoons. I've seen them like between, 12 and 2. It's like, can you come at the beginning of school and at the end, But they have been out there, so we should get an answer whether or not they're willing to reduce our speed limit across the front. So, fingers are crossed. One of the things that has just come up recently, and I'm looking to the board to help me write, I guess, a policy guideline, whichever we want to call it. Potsdam Central School recently just had a Department of Health inspection. They were cited because they were taking their fruit out of the cafeteria, and students were taking it, collecting it from their student council, and then giving it to other kids throughout the day. And they were cited, and of course, when it's a perishable food such as that, you can't do that, because it could be tainted, something could happen to it.
Is that reference to the emails we received?
Yes.
Okay.
That has caused a panic amongst many of the food managers, and including ours, that, no food should go out of the cafeteria, we shouldn't be doing this, we're gonna stop. And I told Kathy, back off, I wanna talk to the board. Today, I was fortunate enough to get a call from Bruce Stone, who is Department of Health. They are investigating this, because what that ended up doing, at breakfast, for example, our students are mandated to take a certain amount of foods to meet each of the food groups. Whether you want 2 boxes of cereal or not, you take them. What happened because of this mandate was now they were being thrown away. And I said, this is ridiculous. We're a high poverty district. We have kids that don't have food, to throw away unopened packages, that haven't been tainted, that still look brand new, graham crackers and juices, what can we do? The interpretation of Bruce Stone is quite different than a woman who actually comes out and does some, and he's her supervisor, does some of the audits. He said if our board wants to, at this point, write that as long as it's in its original, unopened, undamaged, non-hazardous material, we can continue to serve it until otherwise heard from the Bureau. And I can't imagine, what we do at breakfast, there's bins at the end of each table. You don't want your graham crackers, your cereal, or your juice, you put it in the bin. It then is taken by teachers upstairs and it's turned out to some of the special ed classrooms. And also other kids, if they miss breakfast, they come, they have, don't feel well, anybody can dive into that collection of food. It's not being resold, it's not, so I guess I'm looking for permission to put something together and have it passed through at our next meeting. I was very happy to hear from Bruce today.
As long as it's not in any way, shape, or form in violation of the health code.
What the health code does say specifically is if it's hazardous, it can't be reserved. Hazardous is something like milk. Obviously, there's an expiration. If it sits out for a half hour, we don't want that. At this point, because our juice says must be refrigerated, we can't keep the juices. As what it says is it has to be, if it's unprotected, you have to throw it away. And at this point, all of our stuff, that we're referring to, which is the cereals, the graham crackers, they are protected. As long as we look at them and say, nope, they haven't been opened, they're not crushed, we can continue to serve them. And Bruce is going to send me an email, hopefully tomorrow, in reference to that, because when I spoke to Kathy, her first thing is, I want to see it in writing. And I understand, but also what Bruce said to me, as long as our board has a guideline that we are following, at inspection time, it doesn't fall on Kathy if there is a controversial issue, from this. But his interpretation is very different than one of the inspectors that was out. So,
They have a little common sense, I mean, if you just want it under the counter, you take it down and throw it away.
Right.
That's stupid.
I would agree, yeah. that's-
Can we give you a motion tonight on that?
I,
Give you a blanket motion saying that if it comes in both you and the cafeteria.
If it has to be a policy, I think we have to.
well, guideline policy, he said guideline or policy, eventually, I don't know if we're gonna have to get to the policy end,
Right.
because I think it's gonna come through the bureau of what it really is going to be now. And the reason I think it became such a major hot point issue was because it was fruit. You can't, I mean, so any food, you know, if it's unwrapped, it has to be thrown away,
Right.
bottom line. But,
Well, there's a big difference if you throw away cereal that hasn't been opened and a tuna fish sandwich in a locker 2 weeks ago.
right, but what happened, I mean, is when you read the regulations, and I immediately, when I read them, I said, that's not what I read, I started emailing Genevieve, and that's why Bruce, her supervisor, got back to me. And this caused, I mean, hotbed across the county, it's not just here.
Has to be board approved if we don't meet for 2 weeks.
What if you do something like, maybe you can pass something giving the superintendent permission to follow the written guidelines presented by the local director of the New York State Department of Health regarding reserving,
He said not to use the word
Reusing.
reserving.
regarding
Excess.
unused,
Original,
protected
unopened, undamaged,
food items.
non-hazardous food items.
something like that. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Sounds
You could
good.
pass that tonight, and
Right.
if we need to revamp it in 2 weeks, we could amend it.
But that just also takes Kathy off the hook, and I understand why she,
Right.
would be concerned about that, because, but that sounds good. Let me see what else I have. We did have an article in the paper because of our high school business class. Terry Remington took a group of students into a competition down at JCC. They did very well. They didn't do as well as they wanted. They did take third place, which when we're competing against schools that are a lot bigger than us, they did very well.
Right.
They did come away with a $125 prize, and they were very excited. The kids had worked very hard, though, on building their business, and felt that they were much more clever than some of the other things that had happened. But it was nice, there was a picture and there was an article, so it was very positive. And Terry works hard with those classes and loves to get into those competitions for the kids. One of the things, just to mention, in scheduling that we're working through right now, we, at this point, will not be offering the 9th and 10th grade global combined class. After meeting with the department, they really feel like that there's not enough students taking it, there's not enough call for it on an on-year as-needed basis. We will look at re-entering that when we have students that can truly get through 9th and 10th grade global in 1 year. So at next year's, we will not be offering that. One of the things, because we have to offer to 7th and 8th grade students a certain amount of honors or whatever you want to call it, enriched classes.
Right.
We are also going to be taking away the 7th and 8th grade science class, and adding, though, a 8th grade enriched English. So for this year, we'll see how the schedule goes without those two things.
Can you tell me how that would affect them as they move up through the school?
For 9th and 10th grade, part of the reason was because they take 9th and 10th grade global, they then, what they were expected to do was to be able to take 2 AP classes and then government.
Okay.
Many of the parents were not happy with the students having to take AP. We had no other offerings.
Right.
So, and for some of those students, when they get out to that level, they may choose not to take all AP in the history, but if they took the 9th and 10th grade, there was no other course offerings for them to take but AP. So that was the reason within that grade. They still will have, at this point, European history AP offered next year, and we're talking about trying to add a different AP under the social again the following year, and alternating every other year.
So the English changing for 8th grade, what is the anticipated?
At this point, they felt there was a strong group of students within the 7th grade that could really do well in enriched. We already have enriched 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade English, and we did not have 8. Because of a large number, they felt that that would be a great benefit. We initially talked about doing a 7-8 enriched English. They can't fit in our schedule to do it at 7 and 8. Which
So
is-
if you take enriched 8th grade in 9th grade, what will you take?
Enriched in 8th grade is not 9th grade.
Right, so,
You can go to, when you go to 9th grade, then you can either take 9th grade or 9th grade enriched.
okay, and
So-
then you just follow the enrichment.
Yes, the enriched classes, it's,
Okay.
yeah,
So
Okay.
you're talking 7th and 8th grade science
we are,
altogether.
for at least this year.
I thought we were.
For the, they take 8th grade performance test in science.
I'm sorry.
They're not dropping the 7th, 8th, and 8th grade science, they're dropping
The
in
mixed
class.
class.
Oh,
The
okay.
mixed,
Okay.
accelerated 7-8.
Okay.
There's not,
The way it's
I'm
done.
sorry, the mixed 7-8.
Okay,
Right,
it's
Part of-
accelerated,
okay.
it's the accelerated seventh
Right.
graders that take 7th and 8th grade science, but there's, quite honestly, there's not enough teaching periods, so we had to do something, so they're going to go into
We are teaching
7th
still
grade.
teaching 7th and 8th grade.
Yes,
Right.
I'm sorry. Now, remember we were getting rid of science, we were talking,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, my bad choice of words.
I feel better.
Okay. That's all I have.
that's too bad.
Well, we think that with the, unfortunately, it's gonna make the classes pretty large, because now, normally they'd be pulled out, so now they're all lumped into 7th grade. But
Right.
we didn't have the teaching periods with only 3 staff members, something had to go.
Right,
So we're hoping that at the end of 7th grade year, that will be when the decision will be made, if they're going to move into living environment. We recognize that there's going to be some issues, because they'll need to take the Science 8 assessment, and they're going to be missing a full year of 8th grade science, which is physics. So we're hoping that,
wow,
right, we're hoping that we can implement something maybe during walking, maybe during their free time, after school. For instance, Mr. Hogel's been dealing with this, with his accelerated class, to prepare them for the Science 8 test that they would have to take, where they're missing that material. So they would get accelerated at the end of 7th grade year, move directly to living environment. But in preparation for that 8th grade test, we would have to provide them some window, some time frame when they can review and get that physics in there.
that'd be a tough evaluation of those students. Because that'd be a
They're,
lot of
you know, I
times.
mean, generally, again, they're receptive, they're eager to learn. We need to provide the avenue for that to happen, so we need to be diligent that we're making sure that before that test occurs, they get that time.
I also, and I don't know if you, being a science person, you might be able to explain this, or Joe, looking at the new science curriculum, which is really 6-8, I mean, it's, 6th grade is changing immensely how they're going to be teaching science. They're really pushing K-5 together now, and then 6-8, and it's something we might have to start to look at and compartmentalize in science and math, starting in 6th grade.
Personally, I like that age bracket better
I do
anyway.
too, rather than saying 5-8. But
Yeah.
it's time to just put a K-5, you know.
Yeah,
But I know they're really, you know, it's, when you look at everything with the state now, it's 6-8.
mhm, good, I
So-
think it's a better fit.
Okay.
Okay, Becky, do you have anything you'd like to, you did your,
Nothing new on the
you did your duty
state
already?
front, anything new?
Okay, thank you.
Can I, if you get a chance, when that new book list comes out, can you just send us the book?
Oh, it's out,
list?
it's out. You just type in New York State, 9 through 12, I'll do a quick search like.
She'll get it to us before the meeting is over.
Okay, I just wanted to look at some of the books and start reading some of them, maybe.
Yes.
I
We're
don't
gonna go
know,
ahead and do that.
I don't know if someone wants to make this motion, but I'm thinking about something like to give the superintendent permission to follow the written recommendations from the director of the local New York State Department of Health regarding maximizing the unused food items from the cafeteria that are still in their uncontaminated original packaging.
Can you say non-hazardous, because that's the actual word out of the regulations.
I'll make one.
I'll second it.
Reggie? And Lynn?
It's non-perishable, instead of non-hazardous.
I'm sorry, that was Reggie and Lynn.
Yes.
We're fast.
Okay, are you okay with that, or would you like Kay to read it one more time?
Can she read it one more time?
Okay.
Motion by LaPointe, seconded by Collar, to give the superintendent permission to follow the written recommendations from the director of the local New York State Department of Health regarding maximizing the non-hazardous unused food items from the cafeteria that are still in their uncontaminated original packaging.
Okay, all right, all in favor? Any opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you, Kevin.
I know you might shoot me. It has to have the words original, unopened, undamaged, non-hazardous in it.
So be it.
Amended.
I'm still okay with it.
Okay, just hold on, maximizing the original.
Unopened, undamaged, non-hazardous. Okay. Okay.
That's something,
Those are the specific words you kept saying.
so depending on what you come back with, we're gonna have to add this or revisit it. See what is next.
All right, I think we can move into executive session. Can I have a motion to move into executive session?
For the purposes of,
Oh, yeah, right here. For discussion of regarding proposed pending or current litigation, collective negotiation pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law, medical, financial, credit, or unemployment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation, and for the CSE, CPSE.
Says employment history of a particular person or corporation.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Unemployment.
Oh,
Can
okay.
somebody make a motion?
So, Linda,
Lynn
I'll second.
and Rich. Okay, we're gonna move into executive session at 8:39.
29.